Hi, I'm Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. So again, we're going to be doing neuroanatomy, most parts and functions of the human brain, part 2. So we already learned about the brain, at least the main functions of the brain, out of the cerebrum, which is over here, the 4 lobes, right? The frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. And we also have learned a bit about this thing, which is the cerebellum, and the brainstem. So since you already know about this, I'm not really going to go into a very detailed review about these, because you just go check part 1 for us. And so we're just going to dive straight into the new parts that we haven't learned about, at least in this channel. So we first have to understand the human neuron because, as I said, I did not film how a human neuron works in the first episode of the brain. So I'm going to do it now. So this is a regular neuron, and some of them are not just microscopic. Some of them can stretch all the way down your limb, which is like around a meter or so like very long. And the neuron has a couple of parts. So there are the dendrites, which are kind of like branches of the neuron, the cell body where the nucleus is found, the body or like the axon of the neuron, and the other dendrites at the other side. So when a signal is received from the dendrites, from here, it will be converted into electrical signal and sent down. Now this blobby thingies are called myelin sheath. Now they are responsible for making the signal go faster. So when the signal comes here, it will just go, and then when it hits the myelin sheath, it will jump, and then jump, and then jump, and then jump. Not literally, but like, they're like gaps, right? They're gaps that lets the ions go in, and then that triggers electric action potential. But there are no opening channels over here, so the signal just jumps. And then once it reaches the bottom part of the neuron, either way, if there's myelin sheath or not, it will be converted into chemical signal because you cannot send electrical signals straight through a very big gap to another neuron. So it gets converted into chemical signal. And then it gets released to the neighboring neuron, which triggers another action potential if there is any action potential at all. And that is called a synapse. Now, if you do this, the neurons are not literally touching, okay? Not literally touching. Because if they were, then you could probably literally send an electrical signal all the way down. But in this case, the neurons are actually not touching. And when you zoom in, they are actually quite far away. And that means that once the electrical signal reaches here, it has to be converted into chemical signal onto the second neuron. So that's the neurons for you. The thalamus. We might have already learned about the thalamus in the first video, but I'm going to go a little more into depth. The thalamus is this egg-shaped blob over here that is responsible for relaying sensory signals. So sensory signals like visual, hearing, and taste, and also feeling, are all relayed out to different cortexes by the thalamus. So it is a relay center. But why did I not mention smell? Because smell is not relayed. It doesn't come through the brainstem. It comes through the nose and straight to smelling cortex. But there's a lot of evidence that scientists have seen that the thalamus is actually more than a relay center. Why? Because, like for example, for visual cortex, right? If the signal comes up, goes to the thalamus, and it goes to the visual cortex, there are actually 10 times more signals that go back to the thalamus. I mean, like, it's a relay. So what the heck are these signals doing going back to the thalamus and instead not going to visual cortex, right? Isn't that weird? So this is the thalamus, and we're still in the making of seeing if the thalamus is actually just one small organ or like small bits of the brain, or is it actually important to you? The amygdala. The amygdala is somewhere around here, and I can't really pin down the singular location because first of all, the picture is very blurry, but it's somewhere around that area. So the amygdala is not really a very vital part, but it is responsible for lots of, you think is vital, functions of you as your personality. For example, fear. Now, I should point out that someone has actually lost their amygdala before, and then later they cannot feel fear, and they are female, by the way. They are called patient SM. So they've lost their amygdala, and she's now known for the woman with no fear. And as for me, if I had no fear, I think it would be very bad for me for many irrelevant reasons, such as if I should go on a roller coaster or not, but I'm not going to talk about that. So The amygdala has many other functions. And what are those functions? Well, you should just remember the 4 F's. The 4 F's are quite easy to remember. Just feeding, fighting, fleeing, and mating, right? The 4 F's. So this is the amygdala, and the next time you buy almonds, you might know that they're quite the similar size and shape of the amygdala. And the amygdala is actually a Greek word for almond, so just remember that. And the ventricles. The ventricles are these circular shapes over here, and there's 2 in each side of your brain. It's just cut in half so you can see the ventricles clearly, but there's 2. 2 of them, they produce and circulate the CSF, or cerebrospinal fluid, around your brain. These special ventricles are not the kind of ventricles in your heart, okay? Just know that, because I've seen this got very confusing before, and when you search it in the search box, they will just say about the heart, not about the brain. But anyways, the ventricles are just this. From the brain, it does produce and circulate cerebrospinal fluid. That's very important, because when your brain bumps into the side of your skull, it won't immediately go out and crash out, right? So when you bang your head on the wall, you might feel dizzy, you might black out, but you won't necessarily die or suffer serious injuries. That is because cerebrospinal fluid, and you don't have much, roughly half of a cup this big, so that's not much. And lastly, we have the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus. The pituitary gland and the hypothalamus are somewhere here, and the pituitary gland is connected to the hypothalamus by a stalk called the pituitary stalk, also formerly known as the infundibulum. So the pituitary gland has 2 separate lobes of its own. One of the lobe, posterior or anterior lobe, secretes its own hormones, and this other lobe will only store stuff from the thalamus and then secrete it when it's time. So this is the pituitary gland, and the hypothalamus is often involved in regulating temperatures, and again, it is also involved in secreting hormones. That is also part of the endocrine system, but this is not an endocrine system video, so I'm not going to go deep into that. Just know that. I can do that later. So the pituitary gland is kind of like a butt-shaped thingy, so it just finds like a little easier for me to memorize what the pituitary gland is. It's just this thingy over here. It's like a butt-shaped thing, and I just find it funny, but it's okay if it's funny for you too. Anyways, I think that's it for today. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like my videos. And anyways, I have to go now, so thank you. Bye.